I'm Jimmy Fields. Welcome to the after party from my video about beating your kids. I don't have the title for it yet. If you haven't seen it, it's linked in the description in the comments. Check it out and come back in about 8 minutes. This is audio only, so grab that basket of laundry or hit that pile of dishes and let's get into it. Let me turn this off though, real quick. There we go. He always understood. Welcome to the after party for the hilarious, yeah, I said it, about child abuse. That's always going to ruin the fun, is that those words, child abuse. Was it abuse? I've never thought so. I have a some sort of affliction. I have a slightly raspy, smashed up voice tonight. You know, it starts as a little bit of a scratchy throat, and then 2 days later, you've got a clump of cells in your throat. If I could talk fast enough, I sound like Robert Kennedy Jr. The guy with the worms eating his brain. I wonder what percent of his brain they determined was eaten by those worms. I'm doing line retakes. It's really hard for me to say more than 4 words because I keep gacking and choking in the middle of my sentence. So this is going to sound a little cut up. This thing's going to sound a little cut up. This is going to sound a little cut up. By the time I've done my 3rd retake of a line, I can't remember what I was trying to say. Poor me. This is hard. This is hard. So first and foremost, I hope you guys understand how humor and comedy work, right? So after you watch that video, I'm not telling you that you should beat your kids. Let's make that very, very clear. I'm not saying you should beat your kids. But someone needs to. Somebody needs to straighten them out. Someone needs to beat your kids. Just to let them know they can't get away with stuff. You know, beatings come in different forms. Think of the beating like the cosmic slap. You know, there's that old joke about the fish are swimming and an older fish swims going by in the opposite direction and says, "Hey fellas, how's the water?" The nut of the joke is, or the observation of the joke, is your lack of awareness of the reality in which you exist. It's all you know. Growing up, knowing that everyone you knew also got spanked, took away any stigma that spanking has. Now, when spanking was your water, you lived in it. It wasn't seen as abnormal or wrong. I was doing a lot of stalling for time at the end of that video, I'll admit it. I'd cut out a bunch of stuff that, you make cuts all along. But this one was cut very early. And it was a part about me and my brothers, Johnny and Joe, hopping around in our bedroom. That cute little anecdote, ow, 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 ow. And you'd start laughing. Sometimes you experience pain. And the pain is so exquisitely focused and severe and excruciating and of a certain time duration. You can laugh from it afterward. I don't know if that's common amongst other people to feel that way about certain pain, where it hurts so much that you can only laugh at it. Now, I don't mean to imply that if you were lit on fire that you'd be able to laugh your way through it, ha ha ha. But the normal level of pain you can either shriek about like a girl or just grit your teeth. And as you're gritting your teeth, it's just like, gee, it becomes kind of funny in its own way. The family-wide spankings. And then this is where it gets sick. The sound of someone else getting spanked would also make you laugh. It sounds like it's a lack of empathy, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's actual empathy. When you laugh at your sibling getting spanked, it's the laughter of someone who knows it could be any one of us next. The part I left out was the circle would spin around and around. There'd be laughter. Oh my God. You'd hop around. And then the after party. The pajamas and the underwear, whatever, would come down and you'd take a look at each other's stripes. 2, 3 stripes. It would turn into a laughing, weird comparison. Whose was the reddest? Whose was the bluest? Who got a little bit of torn skin? A little bit of that little surface break of skin. Looks like you just got scratched by a fingernail. But a belt did it. And I thought it might be a good idea to cut that part out. Not because I have any particular problem with it, but it just doesn't sound good. But that was the after party to the ritual spankings we'd gotten when my parents had had enough. When for the 6th time they told us to knock it off up there, that belt would come out. Lessons would be taught. All right. That was all it took. A parent going, all right, you knew it. Game was over. Whatever you were doing, you had to knock it off. Sometimes you're taught things in the strangest of ways, and I think that's what spankings are. Smart people learn from spankings, from physical consequences. It's the dummies who don't. Dummies never seem to figure that out. The beating, the attitude adjustment, the application of physical pressure to attain a behavior. I think that's what that is, isn't it? Every guy I knew growing up lived this way. Every kid I knew, every kid, they had dad at the house, you know? You get together with your buddies and it'd be very common to hear somebody's recounting of either a clipping they got or someone in their family got. Oh, my brother got in trouble, blah, blah, blah. The belt, the shoe. Leave a comment. What did you get hit with? Even if they never use the force, the dad has to represent order. Order built on strength. Getting the individual within the group to act or adhere to certain authority requires some sort of force behind it. And to take this many individuals, we're closing in on 9 billion. That's a lot of individuals. From far enough out, humans can seem bug-like, but that's not how we live. We don't live like bugs in our families. Bugs don't beat their children. Humans do that. We're far removed from bug colonies. You, as an individual, you're making decisions. You're an individual. You're not a bug. The spanking teaches you that there's some force outside of your own free will. You're going to be held accountable. You're going to have to maintain a certain type of behavior. You're going to have to behave like a bug, even though you're not a bug. But intra-family spankings, like in the good old days, where discipline and punishment were bound by force. A belt, a strap, a wooden spoon. I think that's the way people did it in the old country, and it was handed down. If you have ancestors from the old country, parents, if you have parents from the old country, either they or you probably got spanked or had force behind their discipline. If you were lucky enough to have ancestors from the old country, they probably beat their kids there, and a lot of them their wives. Had they not straightened you out, you wouldn't be here today listening to this. You'd have been off in some terrible business. Some terrible, unholy business, which is no business of mine. Again, you beat your kids, you don't beat your kids, that's your call. I'm afraid it might be too late for most of them. Beatings aren't enough. Now they're going to need what could have been learned with a spanking, or a pinch at the nape of the neck, or a finger flick to the forehead. The 1,000 ways you reminded a kid there was physical enforcement. Beating your kids was like owning slaves. There was a time when everybody did it. I remember when teachers were allowed to physically engage the students. I definitely had my ears pulled, my hair pulled, my shoulders near dislocated. Who knows if the knee pain that I have today isn't from some sort of trauma at the hands of a teacher in my youth. But that teacher was trying to teach me something. I don't know. A lot less shootings when I went to high school. There were a lot less student-on-teacher assaults. Back then, teacher would just give you a whack. Teachers would throw stuff at the kids, you know. The teacher would sit at the head of the class, and if you didn't like what was going on in your zone, you might get hit with a piece of chalk or an eraser or a book, a roll of tape. This was in the days of chalk and erasers, though. People still used chalk and erasers. Savages. Nobody would bat an eye. Yeah, because that's exactly what would happen to you at home. You'd get bonked on the head with something. You know, the classic case of the kid who would never dare mess around at school because the teacher would give him a clip, and then when his parents found out, he'd get more of it at home, and that sort of kept kids in line. You're screwing around, a whack comes at you, side of the head, poke under the ribs. The dummies never seem to figure that out, though. I get the feeling it was pretty well accepted. But yeah, if the kids get out of line, you can handle it physically. How many future criminals caught early enough with a flogging might have been steered toward the path of righteousness? I know that in school, there were times when I got yanked around by the arm, dragged by the ear, dragged by the nose, whacked in the head, I'm certain, paddled, had a principal that paddled. I know I got paddled by a paddle, just like the one in the video. I definitely felt it. I know I was paddled, but I have no specific recollection of it. Though for me, such discipline was a constant or consistent presence. Each has been forgotten like I might have forgotten a family meal. It's all a blur. I wasn't trying to insinuate that I got beaten as much as I ate. That's just the extent of memory I might have for any specific beating. That's the water this fish was swimming in. And I always felt like I always felt like I must have been in the average zone, you know? No specific memories. I've definitely been hit in the head with objects. Could be a beanbag, could be anything. Small notebook. We'd kind of sit and wonder and watch the teacher who could nail a kid from across the room, you know? That was kind of a cool teacher. And it wasn't just the male teachers that did this, you know? Had a principal, a lady principal. I think she was a lesbian. But she would totally take a kid by the ear and by the hair. You know, not like dragging him down the hall by the hair, but like taking a nice little 3-finger pinch of hair on the side of the kid's head and escorting him through the hallway in tow. Kids actually move pretty fast when you do that. They get on their tippy toes, man. My mom or dad would get you by the ear and you'd be on your toes, man. You'd be dancing to wherever they wanted you to go. Spanking the kids was normal. It was heartwarming. You could have a Norman Rockwell painting of a kid taking a beating. I believe that was fodder for comedy in film or television. If you were in a movie now, if you want to make someone a bad guy, show them spanking a kid. You know, show don't tell. Spanking a kid is a negative character trait. That's a villain. That's villainous behavior in today's society. But it wasn't when I was coming up. There's the scene in the movie A Christmas Story where young Ralphie, the little boy, tells his mom he learned these bad words from his buddy Flick. I think it was Flick. It's Flick or Schwartz. I can't remember which one. And the mother gets on the phone with Ralphie's friend's mother and lets her know that her little boy Ralphie learned this terrible word from her son. And the woman on the other line, it's the theater of the mind. You hear her just suddenly, she shrieks, runs off, and immediately starts just thrashing him. And he's screaming and wailing. He doesn't know, it's out of nowhere. He's just suddenly been attacked. What did I do? What did I do? Dinsdale. The slap from somewhere deep in the universe strikes again. Suddenly he's being thrashed, and he knows not why, with whatever the mom can grab and beat him with. And that was normal. It was funny. That's how you handled that. Your kid using the bad language. You better thrash him. Otherwise your kid's going to grow up using bad language. You know, like everybody else who never got thrashed. These days, dear old Mrs. Schwartz would have to take domestic violence classes and anger management classes and probably have to pee in a cup for a while. Schwartz's mother peeing in a cup. I'll say this. Maybe I shouldn't. The implication by today's standards is that every parent in my neighborhood when I was growing up should have had their kids taken away. Every parent. All my friends would have gone into foster care by today's standards. All my friends would be separated from their brothers and sisters. And the parents would have to fight, get lawyers to get back together with their children. By today's standards. That can't be right. They can't all be child abusers. Everybody was a child abuser? Or was that some version of the water they were swimming in? I think it was pretty common that most families I knew, there were times when most, if not all, the kids got a spanking for one thing or another. Report cards. That's the kind of thing. Kids used to get spanked for bad report cards. Like, that's going to make you study harder. I don't think I ever got spanked for a report card. I might have. I don't know. Again, I can't remember. I got spanked for 1,000 different things. And I can't remember any one of them. I remember sort of a vague, I guess, a consistency, a regularity to getting spanked. Some kids you talk to would get spanked more than others, it seemed. But they also seemed to be the ones that were screwing up the most. For some, it was clearly like a war experience. They've only been spanked once. At a certain age, something happened and they got a spanking. That was it. That was all it took. They made sure they never got another one. Some things are like that. You know, one good clout. It can show you the way, and it can also teach you to laugh. You know, like when you're pounding a nail and you hit your thumb, that's the kind of pain you need to be able to laugh at. You need to be able to laugh at the kind of pain you get from banging your thumb with a hammer. Because it's going to happen. It's out there like the universal slap. It's going to happen. You're going to whack your thumb. You're going to bang your shins on something. That one always makes me laugh. It's one of the most painful things outside of severed limbs, taking a great crack to the shins. That's one of the more painful things that can happen to you outside of tearing a muscle or something. Getting whacked in the shins. On the grid of, you know, how common an occurrence it is and how much pain you get for that occurrence, getting whacked in the shins it's a big one. And I always laugh at that. It is so painful. I think it's why people laugh at like getting kicked in the nuts videos. It's funny. The pain is funny. And knowing that you're going through that sort of kicked in the nuts, sans nuts feeling, it's funny. getting whacked in the shins, stubbing the toe.
Tinsdale?
Where was I? Laughing at the pain. Yeah, laughing at pain. I think spanking might have reinforced that or created it. Think about it. Kids who were never spanked or spanked very little, they have very low understanding of the pain levels they can withstand. Getting a spanking teaches you that you can survive the pain of a spanking. I don't know if that's good for discipline or not. It doesn't sound good when I say it. And once you realize you can withstand the pain of a spanking, then you no longer fear spankings. Oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. That kind of undoes the whole point of spanking kids. If spanking teaches them not to fear spanking, you're kind of wasting your time and aggravating your rotator cuff injury with the belt swinging. Look, I know my avatar looks smart, but I'm no scientist. I'm not even as smart as him. I'm not even as smart as a clip art drawing of a guy holding a beaker. So you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. Do you beat your kids or not? I vote yes. Let me know down below what you got beaten with, and I'll see you on the next one.